Hello, everyone. Welcome to this exciting October rendition of our Sustainability Commission meeting. Let's see. I'm going to start with approval of our minutes from the September meeting. So I'll give Rachel a second to share those so you can take a look. Looking at things we talked about. So for the minutes and the agenda today, I'll give you a second to scroll through it. Do we have a motion to accept? Nobody?
I motion to accept.
Thank you, Alyssa. Do we have a second?
I second.
That's Jeremy. Sorry to talk over someone. I'll second that.
Thanks, Jeremy. All right.
All in favor.
So the minute, yeah, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Will also be accepted. You're on video, but not Jeremy and Cameron, because you're not on video. Thank you. Okay, so the minutes and the agenda are approved. Sorry, I'm just kind of multitasking, looking at the agenda for the next thing. Public comment. I haven't received any comments. Rachel or Amy have received any public comments?
No, there's no official public comment tonight.
Okie dokie. Man, we got to get people talking about us. We haven't had a public comment yet.
I don't know if that's common or uncommon. We don't have any official public comment, but as on the agenda, I will talk about some sustainability related emails that have come up. They're just not officially public comment.
That's close though.
One thing I'll say is I know that on the community page, there's someone who posts all like the monthly meetings, and the sustainability meeting this last time was not listed. So I don't know if people just aren't as aware, maybe, or I thought she pulled the meeting list right from the city page, but I could be wrong. So I wanted to just mention that.
Well, that's good to know. We are the newest commission, so
right.
Maybe we need a public outreach campaign so people know we exist.
I corrected her for what it's worth, but.
Alrighty, no public comments. So we'll move on to the staff report. Sounds like our climate action plan was approved. Rachel, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. So the last city council meeting was October 13th, and on the agenda for that meeting was the approval of the climate action plan. It had already obviously gone through several sustainability commission meetings and a work session with city council. So it was the official motion and approval of the plan, and council, echoed the excitement that we've heard at the previous work session and in general. And it seems, like we're on track to keep going with the work that we've been doing and add new projects that are highlighted in the climate action plan, and to use that as the framework for, the work of the commission and my position for the next 5 years. So that was really exciting. That's pretty much it. I just wanted to tell you all that was officially approved, and yeah, it's a good step in this process.
Great. Any questions from anybody for Rachel about how that went or anything like that? Congratulations, Rachel, on getting.
Thanks. And to all of us.
Pretty awesome. So what happens to it now? Is it posted online?
So yeah, it is posted online. It's on the main sustainability page. If you just go under the residents tab of the website and click on sustainability/recycling, on that main page, there's a blurb. You'll see the picture. You can click, you can read it online. You all obviously have seen it, but I don't think anything changed, but it's still obviously available online for everyone to see. And what happens now is, I mean, it's pretty much just a continuation of what we've been doing and using it as a plan as we look at, what are we trying to work on as a commission next year, projects in the future, things like that. So it's really just, like the goal was the whole time, the centralization of sustainability efforts and other department efforts too.
And I think baked into the plan was some mechanism for like an annual update or annual review or something like that.
Yeah. So it is, and it's very vague. Like that's pretty much the language. It will be annually reviewed by the commission, and it's kind of acting as the Sustainability Commission's update to council. So every year, commissions give end of year updates to council on what they've done that year, essentially. So this will tie into that, as the chair usually gives that update and says, the update for this year will be the climate action plan was created, but in the future years it'll obviously focus more on the actual projects themselves. So yep, and we can review it as a commission, the efforts before we present that to council as well.
Awesome. Well, now all we have to do is implement it.
Yeah, that's it.
Easy peasy.
Right.
Great. Did you want to talk about those emails that you got, Rachel?
Sure. Yeah, I can move on. So this will tie into the rest of the or another of the agenda items as well. But I've received some emails from residents, mostly about the Lunds and Barley's tree situation and the general tree preservation policy. So I just wanted to kind of have a space, potentially recurring on the agenda for, me to share with you all at the contact that I'm getting with residents about topics and or issues that aren't necessarily for public comment, but like it clearly shows that, other residents are engaged in these issues. So there apparently is a group that is working on tree preservation policy and looking at what other cities have in place and what that could mean for Richfield to look at in future developments and adopt a similar policy. I honestly, when I wrote the agenda, I'm not sure if I had any other general resident comments besides the tree ones. But yeah, I think that might have been mostly it this time.
So who's working on the tree preservation policy stuff, and is that some effort we could connect with as a commission?
Yes. So I got an email from Mia Simpson, who formerly of the Organics Task Force, currently of the Arts Commission, I think. Yes. Who connected me with a resident. Her name is Sandy, and I don't have the email on the top on my inbox right now. I forgot her last name, but Sandy has been apparently involved in the community page and with I think on the Facebook thread. I'm not super sure about that, but on those on the threads about the Lunds tree, and has apparently started compiling research from other cities who already have policies in place. She didn't expand a ton on what work she's done on drafting a policy for Richfield, so I can't speak much to that yet. But she did say she would keep me informed on this policy that they're drafting, and we can integrate that with what staff will be working on. So I guess this kind of just segues right into the tree thing. So if I could just leave the resident comment bit, and I'll just move to the tree situation in general. So just to recap, if everyone's not on the same page, we've talked about how Lunds had this large tree in their parking lot, around their parking lot, somewhere around there. And we got to a point where the city had approved development plans that didn't have the tree on them, and thus the tree was going to be removed. And by the time that it had really come to light for many residents, obviously it was fairly recently. And so there was kind of, a lack of communication on some ends to, why wasn't this talked about sooner kind of thing? Can the tree stay? Why is the tree being removed? All those things. And so the tree was taken down, last week, this week.
Like last week. Yeah. That's
Time is,
great.
yeah, I don't know anymore.
Fresh.
recently. And so now, obviously, with that situation being what it is, we have tried to turn to what does this look like in the future. So with, you know, trees in Richfield and developments in Richfield, obviously there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of priorities here, and there's a lot of like goals here, and there's sustainability goals and there's development goals, and it's really trying to find the best of both worlds. So we had a staff meeting this week to talk about, you know, a preservation policy and what that would look like. And I did some research, preliminary research into preservation policies that other cities have. And it's really interesting because a lot of them seem just like replacement policies, like submit a plan for identifying significant trees, and then if you remove a tree, you have to replace it.
That's not preservation.
I didn't write the other cities' policies. So this is going to be a larger, you know, discussion that we have to have as a community is, okay, when you know, as residents, you are wanting a preservation policy. I'm not talking about you as the commission, but, you know, Richfield residents wanting a preservation policy. What does that mean to you all? Are there examples of a specific kind of preservation policy? You know, it's going to be a longer conversation. So we had a staff meeting about, you know, where does this live? Is it more sustainability commission? Is it planning commission with development review and community development? You know, is it a joint effort between both commissions working together? Does one commission draft a policy, send it to the other for edit? Like, what's the back and forth? Who's making a recommendation to council? All these kinds of things. Trying to figure out, because this issue does involve a variety of departments and a variety of staff members, like who's best to kind of lead this. And that's still an ongoing discussion. But we're trying to figure out the you know, nuts and bolts of the process and what the policy would entail, because it sounds like, and I don't think I'm wrong, but it sounds like residents don't just want a replacement policy. They want something that looks at, you know, the specific trees, and, you know, we have to define what are these specific kind of legacy trees. You know, a lot of preservation policies then also have a clause that says something about the health. And so then it's like, well, who's defining that? I know one's for 10 years, you know, who said whatever the arborist said that it indicated that the
Breaking up,
like,
Rachel.
how are we defining?
Okay, kind of back. Your video, we lost your video. We might have lost Rachel.
I think overall, you know, and having been at the meeting talking preliminarily about the tree policy and what it could be, is I think it'll just be a very collaborative approach, working with the community, working across several commissions and departments to get something in place that the community wants. And having some definitions as to what a legacy tree is, because I'm sure a lot of people know, you know, there's some trees that are huge that are only like 60 years old if they're like a cottonwood tree, and they don't have the value of a large oak tree. So just understanding what is a true legacy tree and defining that, and also having a replacement policy in place. Like, the city does a very good job planting trees, but actually having a policy in place when trees get taken out. Well, not necessarily in legacy trees, but just that they get planted. So we're just starting that discussion. And I think as we get some resident feedback, we'll be moving it forward and working kind of collaboratively, I think, though, across several groups to get something that people can respond to.
Great, thanks, Amy, for the update on that. Yeah, just to address the fact that last month, obviously, like, we moved to write a letter to Lunds about this tree, but then just so that everybody on the commission is aware, we did that not having the information that the council had already basically approved these plans without the tree. And so Rachel reached out to me and said, out of kind of respect for the fact that the council has already made a decision on this, it wouldn't be great for the commission to be kind of doing this when the decision had already been made. And then obviously the tree came down really quickly, so it kind of became a moot point. So Carolyn and I didn't get to then send that letter, but I don't think this precludes us from sending a different kind of letter, maybe addressing some of these issues that Amy and Rachel were just talking about, about the idea of a tree preservation policy and protecting legacy trees and what that might mean to residents. I think and Rachel touched on this a little, I think, from diving a little bit into the Richfield community page, as I tend to do at times, some of the heartache around this tree was, first of all, that it was kind of iconic, to Richfield, just because it was like right when people are entering Richfield and they had lights on it and stuff, and a lot of people had grown up really liking it. But on top of that, I think some of the residents that were commenting about it, had been involved in this like early planning commission decision about it, and they had gotten the impression from Lent that they were going to try to save the tree. And then obviously that's not what happened. And so some people felt a little like, that was miscommunicated or poorly communicated. And even somebody said they talked to the arborist, and what they had said, Rachel, was like the arborist had been working on the tree for 20 years and was not aware that it was coming down. So I don't know, I heard a different story about that. So it just seemed like there were some like mixed messages about it. And I think it, residents would like to have just had a more transparent process, I think, about something that they kind of felt like was a part of the community's, like skyline, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think this is probably something that's of interest to people, and it would be a great thing to liaise with the Planning Commission on if we're thinking about some kind of policy that might be related to building development. So it sounds like currently there is no policy that requires developers to replace trees if they take them down in Richfield. Is that true?
I think there's something, and if it's not official policy, it's definitely common practice. I don't think that there's a situation where we have a development that removes trees and doesn't replace them. I'm pretty sure that we do look at landscape review, and if there are trees that are being removed on developments, the developers then put in the landscape review the addition of new trees. Obviously, they're young trees. It's not the same as removing
like
mature trees.
A 1-for-1 replacement is not really a replacement. Not when it's like a 280-year-old oak tree that they take down, and it's like, oh, it's okay, we planted a red maple. I don't know. So yeah, I think probably that would be an interesting thing for us to be involved in, is to kind of think through what does replacement look like when it comes to replacement, but also are there opportunities to actually have some different rules and policies around tree preservation and try to find more ways to preserve some of these trees that were part of the landscape, for maybe hundreds of years before Richfield or even Minnesota was here. Politically.
Yeah, I know. The oaks, it's interesting because when we talk about, tree preservation and removal and everything, most of the conversation seems to revolve around these oaks, which, it's just a point. I think it's interesting, but it's definitely something that, staff wants to work on. And I think there is a very clear opportunity here for improving the review process and kind of making sure that these things are known or spread throughout the community ahead of time. A lot of people obviously aren't paying attention to every step of a development review process. It's not glamorous. The plans aren't easy to understand or anything, and it's not part of, a resident's job or anything. So I think that's where us doing a better job on education as it relates to these kinds of things will help out.
So, yeah, Carolyn.
I also was in, as well as thinking about a definition Amy suggested, I think we need to define what specific trees are legacy trees. But I've been thinking about, do we need to do an inventory of what we have in Richfield? Because I was thinking specifically of the oak trees, and as far as I can think of or recall, I think about only oaks on public property is in Augsburg Park. All the other oaks that I can recall are on private property. They're in the neighborhoods west of 35W, either side of Wood Lake, basically all 4 directions from Wood Lake. There are oaks in the neighborhoods. And I really think Augsburg is the only area where they're on public property. So I think identifying where these are and what other type of trees we might consider as legacy trees, I think that would be part of what we would need to do.
Forestry has somewhat of a tree inventory that they use. I'm not sure if it includes public, private, one or the other, boulevard only. I don't know what it includes, but I know that we do have a tree inventory of at least part of the city.
Is that a public inventory, publicly accessible?
I have no idea. I can ask Chris, but that I don't know.
One other thought that I wonder about, and it's not I don't know, you're always asking the question of like, if a major tree comes down, like what, if anything, can actually like make up for that. But thinking about some parallels to other developments that or other development goals, we have goals around affordable housing, that when a development can't meet those goals, there are, we call it the in lieu payment, which needs work. But basically the idea is like, if something we don't want has to happen in one area, that then the developer is asked to contribute money to help further the goal in another area. And so I do wonder, like, could there be a policy where, if, however we define a legacy tree, if a legacy tree is deemed it needs to come down, or it's worth coming down for the sake of whatever the thing is they're proposing, could the developer then be expected to pay a certain amount of money toward other sustainability efforts in the city?
Or even other tree planting efforts. I think that's an interesting idea. It's something akin to like the Wetland Conservation Act a little bit, maybe is what you're talking about, Ben. But whereas like if you remove wetland, you have to replace it, but not necessarily nearby. It can kind of, there's just sort of like this net sum of wetlands that you have to replace in the state. And there's credits that are bought and sold kind of in that regard. And it is a little different, I think, than what you're suggesting, but the idea that it's accounted for in a tangible way, measured, and needs to be replaced and given back in kind to the city, which I think we would all agree is not just planting a single like little bitty tree. So I think that's a great idea. I think let's take a moment, and if anybody else has ideas, like let's brainstorm about that. And then I would say what might be a good action item for us is to, then send your ideas to Rachel, or maybe Rachel, because I don't know how the rules work with us communicating, but you could send those ideas to Rachel, and maybe this could become the basis for a letter to council from the commission about, some of our thoughts, collected thoughts on what could go into this like tree preservation policy. And it could be just kind of some of these ideas, like important to identify what a legacy tree is, and here's some things that may contribute to that. This idea of, like a tree credit banking system, kind of like Ben said, that if you take down one of these legacy trees, you have to provide some kind of compensation to the city to do other tree planting or other sustainability actions, like Carolyn's idea of like having a more detailed tree inventory, or making, maybe that already exists and then we can find out about that. But I think these are all great ideas. Are there any others that people are thinking about?
That was a great idea. I just want to, he had a great idea right there. Like Amanda said, feel free to email those to me. Not the ones that she just listed. I'll get those. But if you do have any ideas that you want to include in a letter to council, or as we're brainstorming what this policy looks like in general, that would be helpful. Otherwise, I think we can kind of go from there on this issue, and have also obviously highlight the importance of the education throughout the process, and transparency between, if it's on private property, between the developer and the arborist they use, the public, things like that, to kind of have more straight communication and then make sure everybody's on the same page with who's saying what in a particular situation. I think that would have eliminated a lot of the back and forth on crosswires and things like that. So
awesome. Well, if you have those ideas, maybe try to send them to Rachel in the next 2 weeks. And then Rachel, if you could compile those and send them to me and Carolyn, we can kind of maybe work on this as in lieu of the letter that we were going to write before, and maybe some kind of draft that we can bring to the commission.
Which is great.
We have our next meeting.
Yeah, it's moved up in November because of Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But that's fine. And that ties in perfectly, obviously, as the commission's role is to advise council. So that works great.
Well, this will be a great test run for us.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners on the tree issue or tree legacy, tree preservation policy?
If you do have further questions about the situation, there are some community development staff members who I can put you in contact with about this particular situation. Otherwise, going forward, talking about it as a general tree preservation policy issue will be good.
I'd be interested in being well, you said it was Mia, maybe, is the right person to contact. Who's
you mean with other residents?
Yeah, you said there were other people.
I can connect you with those residents. I meant if you had questions about like the whole how the city went through the development process, their communication with Lunds, that kind of stuff. Sure. But I can, Amanda, I'll connect you with the resident who I've been talking to.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna move on and have Rachel and Amy talk about organized collection. I'm gonna have to go on mute and turn my camera off for a second. I gotta deal with my baby, but go ahead.
It'll just be Rachel, because I think Amy ran into the same internet problem that I did. But that's fine. It's going to be a brief overview, since basically letting you all know that we have a work session scheduled with council. I believe, now that I don't have my calendar in front of me, it's, Ben, do you know, is it the November 10th? It's that Tuesday. I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. So November 10th, there's a work session with the city council to inform them of next steps in the organized collection process, and talk about public engagement and, kind of the precursor to the process itself. So I just wanted to keep you all updated as a Sustainability Commission. I know this is something that we've talked about before, and really as we start looking at public engagement, and sharing information with residents and having those conversations and having listening sessions and things like that, that's really a strong point of this commission is community outreach and education. So we'll be talking more about that in the future. But as we talked about with the Facebook page earlier, and community feedback and resident feedback, I think it's something that we will be talking about as staff, since we don't interact on the community page itself. if, you know, that is a role that the commission would like to play in directing residents who have questions or concerns to email staff who might not be aware that I'm the person to contact, you know, or kind of interceding on that page. So we'll talk to staff more also about how the city will be, you know, helping spread that message. But I think the community page is obviously where a lot of people interact and talk and share opinions, and that's a great resource. So as commissioners, if you are on that page or on Facebook and aren't on that page, as we go through this process, really sharing the education that we're creating and we will be sharing with you all too, will be super helpful. But besides that, I know it's a really vague update, but that was pretty much it. Just that the work session's coming up, and you know, public engagement will start soon, and we hope that we can have this commission be the forefront of that effort. So if there are any questions on that really vague update, I will be happy to answer them.
Sorry, Rachel, I stepped away for 1 second. When did you say that workshop?
Yeah, I give it all over again.
No. I just want to hear the date of the work session.
It's November 10th.
And that's something that we should go to.
If you're available and interested, I'm pretty sure work sessions are open to the public for attendance. I don't know, Ben, can you jump in on this one?
I would love them to be. They have not been.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, the recordings are definitely available. Actually, now that I say definitely, I don't even know if that's true.
The recordings are available, yes. The work
Okay.
sessions have not been streamed live. So if any of you would love to pressure for that to be changed, I don't know why this wouldn't be a joint work session with the Sustainability Commission. We do that regularly with Planning Commission or with HRA. I don't know if it's too late to consider that.
I don't know if it is. I don't think it was ever brought up just because I never have had a joint work session. I've done a few work sessions in general, but they've never been joint. So I guess I didn't know that that was an option. Can you explain a little bit about a joint work session and how that might work with the commission?
Yeah, so I think the most common time we have joint work sessions is when we talk housing policy, we'll do that with the HRA. When we talk, like when we get a development proposal, then the Planning Commission and the HRA come.
Okay.
And it's generally like joint work sessions are just when it's info that's pertinent to more than just the council, or it's something that a commission like has a role in. So I would think that this could certainly be the case.
Right.
Amy, I was just saying, I don't know if it's too late or if it'd be appropriate for the hauling work session to be a joint one with the Sustainability Commission. Someone had asked if they were encouraged or able to attend.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't invite people to that. Are you saying the whole commission come to the work session on November 10th?
I was just, Rachel had asked, I was describing like how joint work sessions have worked with the Planning Commission or HRA.
Yeah, Amanda asked if the work session for organized collection was open to attendance or things like that. And Ben helped out because I didn't know if they were open for, attendance or just recordings.
I think attendance too. I believe so.
They have not been.
Oh, really?
For the public, right.
Oh, okay.
So, but we can have a joint session with the commission and those who are able to attend from the commission. Obviously, it's not a mandatory meeting or anything, but we could, I would assume, work on that. Let me check with our staff who runs the logistics for the work session and see if it's too late. I don't think it would be, but let me just check before I commit to that. And we can see about having more of a joint style session, or at least just inviting commission members to attend.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk to Kelly and Blanca.
I did have one question. And I had talked with Katie a little bit about this too. Is it true that there will be some kind of formal vote then at the November 10th council meeting for council to vote on like beginning this process?
So there doesn't need to be, like, according to all of the steps that are laid out in state statute, there's nothing that's officially needed, as far as my understanding, and I can confirm with our city attorney, but there's nothing that's officially like a motion must be made to start this process. The actual declaration of intent, I guess, is through public legal notice that's published in the Sun Current and disseminated to the public in other ways. So I don't know if we will actually be taking a motion at the work session unless council feels that it is important to have that, symbolic motion, but it's not legally required as far as I understand about it.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. So I think I've had a couple and I had emailed this to you, but just for the rest of the group to know, I have had a couple residents reach out. I still overwhelmingly have heard for years positive like response, people wanting to organize hauling. But I think now that we're starting, we will hear from people who are not a fan. And I think just having, as with anything, having super clear communication up front is going to be hugely helpful and important. And so I think I myself am not yet clear on if we are deciding something on the 10th or just like understanding the process. And residents, like one resident in particular asked like, when is this officially a done deal? And I had no idea. I let her know
So
that the whole council wanted to move forward with it. But, yeah.
Right. I can try and provide some clarification. So we've done with our work sessions in the past, council has given us direction to move forward on this topic, to approach those next steps, which have at times included research, have at times included more substantial action. So this work session is kind of acting as like the last, the last information update before the process actually starts, because we've gotten that direction at previous work sessions to continue this process itself. And we've had, I don't know off the top of my head, but at our work session earlier this year, pre-pandemic, so it still was this year, I believe there was a motion taken to proceed between when we were looking at organizing just recycling and organics collection. And it became clear that that was no longer as viable of an option as we thought it was. I believe there was a motion taken to officially proceed with researching and moving forward with organizing trash. I can go back and check, and if that wasn't an official motion, it might make more sense at the November 10th work session to make it official. But we've gotten at least unofficial direction, verbal direction from all council members to proceed with this process. So in terms of when is it a done deal, when a contract's signed, I don't know like what stage of the process, when is it a done deal that the city is looking at pursuing this and actively pursuing this, or when is it a done deal that organized collection could be happening in Richfield? Like, do you know more about what that resident was saying?
I think basically she was just wondering, and other people will be wondering. I mean, there's always this perception that like their resident input is invited, but that the decision has already been made. And so I think people are just wondering like, okay, there's going to be a process, there's going to be input requested, like what is still on the table? And like I know for a fact there's going to be a lot of details that are like input will be super helpful on. Right. But like if someone is dead set against organized hauling, like is that even worth providing their input anymore? Or is it?
I would say resident input is always encouraged, no matter, what that opinion is. It's my job to bring all forms of input to city council and say, okay, this is what the decision is being made on. Here's what I know from the factual perspective of all the numbers and the process and whatever, and here's what I know from resident feedback. And then I, as a staff member, obviously you know this, but for everyone else, I as a staff member bring that, at a work session or at, in a memo or whatever, and make sure that council has all that information. So first of all, I do want to say throughout this whole process that all feedback is always, wanted, encouraged, no matter what the opinion is or what, the majority seems to be. And in terms of, the process itself, legally, I believe that the city can stop it at any time. So if the feedback from council has been, let's pursue this. But if the feedback from residents overwhelmingly was, against that, the council still has the ability to stop the process. The city still has the ability to stop the process and listen to that feedback. But of course, as the initial meetings happen with haulers or listening sessions happen with residents, that's where this exchange of ideas and information is coming from. And that's where, hopefully we can hear from residents who say, yes, I want fewer trucks on the roads. No, I don't believe in organized collection, or, no, can you explain more? I see what's happened in other cities and I want to learn how Richfield's working to not end up in that situation, or things like that. That's really what the start of this process is about, is having that dialogue and getting all those questions answered, because there are a lot of details in this process. So I hope that answers some questions.
I also might point out that we might want to learn from some of the treacherous waters that other cities have swam through during this process, and recall that, was it St. Paul that the state Supreme Court ruled that they had to put it on the ballot because there was like a petition or something that a certain
Bloomington
number
had that situation. They're
Bloomington, I
voting
couldn't
on it
remember
this year.
Or St. Paul.
I don't know if St. Paul had a state Supreme Court decision, but it was also on their ballot
It was
for
so I
voting.
think, Bloomington was the one that actually had the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
Solve. and so, we should be prepared for the fact that maybe there will be a ballot initiative about this, because I don't think it required very many residents to push for that, essentially, for it to happen. I don't know all the details of that, but, just kind of in general, like, to try to make this an open and transparent process, because obviously, even if there's a very vocal minority that is opposed to this, they have a lot of power to be able to slow down the process. And we don't want that. We want it to be something that people feel engaged in, and not that they have to use their veto power, as a resident to kind of force the situation because they felt like they didn't have a voice during it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, no, having a voice and learning from all residents is obviously key to this process. And we hope that by going through this and having that transparency and sharing all of the education and listening and having those conversations, perhaps we can have a different, smoother outcome. We'll just have to see. But yeah, I'm really excited to engage with residents about this issue and hear, all sides. So
was the Bloomington measure on the primary election, or what is it on November 3rd?
November. They're voting on it.
So they
now.
haven't decided yet. Okay.
No.
Yeah, that goes.
Does anyone know what the main arguments, might be? I'm wondering if we look at some of the other cities and kind of see what the arguments for and against. Obviously, I know one argument against that I've heard is, the fear of having this monopoly and not being able to shop, for the different haulers price wise and things like that. But, maybe if we look at that aspect too, when it comes to the other cities and what they've done.
We've definitely done that, started and done that research internally, and that will be information that is shared externally for sure.
Awesome.
We've had a lot of conversations with a lot of cities, a lot of agency leaders and things like that, learning about, the different aspects and, positives and negatives from different sides. That is a common, concern or critique of the system. People want to choose their hauler.
Yeah,
Yep,
so I would
that
say
is.
anecdotally, like the two pushbacks that I've seen from people that oppose this, one is cost, and basically it comes down to, while on average the average citizen usually ends up saving money through this process, the fact is that some people who are willing to spend a lot of time, like switching haulers and calling people and all that, usually end up having to pay more. And so and there's a little bit of a like justice concern there, that like some people
It's
who maybe
definitely
can
an
afford
equity
it, like
issue.
seniors
Yep.
or low income folks, are going to be penalized by having to pay more. So that's something to keep in mind during this process, if there's a way for us to make it economically accessible to everyone. And then the other piece of pushback that I've seen is essentially the concern that by not being able to fire a hauler, the residents risk getting lower quality of service. And so there's a lot of concern that the city will just choose the biggest, cheapest hauler, like Waste Management, and people have had a lot of bad experiences with the quality. And so they want to feel assured that the city is going to be able to hold the contractor responsible. So I think like if we could go in knowing those two issues are the biggest concerns, that's
I think, Amanda, with that too, is what I've heard is that individuals are upset that we're kind of pushing out small businesses as well, depending upon how the city goes about it. Because that's the other confusion part with it, is that you can do it in a couple of different fashions, where you can have just one hauler for the entire city, or you could divide the city up into different sort of districts based off of the current sort of populace that each hauler has. But with that sort of direction, then you lose like a collectively bargaining chip on the table, because you're working with all the haulers, and then they can create their sort of demands and price and that sort of thing. Where if you open it up just to one hauler, then you can have more of a competitive bidding for the city. So there is that, and then I think there's a lot of confusion because some cities, like you said, Rachel, have had a lot of animosity with this whole situation, creating a lot of upset residents with it, because there's a lot of confusion surrounding that. So coming in clear and being concise about what sort of direction the city is going in, and how we can resolve those sort of identified issues that some people have, I think is going to be most important for the city and for us to help with.
Yeah, we're going to focus on education. I think this is a great example of why, hopefully having a joint work session will help. There is, in the statute, we have to follow a specific procedure. And with that statute, it means that when the city organizes collection, the first attempt has to be through a consortium. So what Jeremy was describing, like, you can't first go out for RFP, which is that single hauler bid. You have to negotiate with the consortium of licensed haulers. That retains market share. That doesn't push small business out. It helps. The city does still have a bargaining effort, as representing its entire population. It's less than if you are having haulers bid for a contract, but it is still more of a bargaining presence than an individual household. So yeah, we'll go through all of this education so that you all understand kind of how the procedure works, and the positives, negatives, different opinions, ins and outs. There's a lot to it. I've been reading over it for months and months and months, and there's still more that I'm learning. So it's a long process for sure, but having these questions is good. It gives me a chance to explain them, and I think it brings us all closer to being on the same page. So.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate all of this info.
Yeah, I'm excited. Bring it on. We're going to dive into this one. We've been talking about it for years.
Less trucks would be great. I'm on a corner and a fairly busy inlet to my neighborhood, and I would love less trucks personally. So
that's what we've been hearing during COVID.
My son might disagree, but he's 4 and
and he's not paying for your trash service.
He'll get over it.
No, yeah, we've been hearing a lot of resident feedback, especially when everyone's at home during the pandemic. People are noticing a lot of these things more. So it's also good to kind of have that perspective too. So yeah, if anyone does want to share what they have noticed, obviously this is a great place. You know, when we talk at the work session, the listening sessions we'll be having with the public, that's you know, a great time for those too.
So just to clarify for myself, and so when I'm sharing, I can kind of know what I'm talking about. This is just trash. This is not recycling, or
No,
would that
organized
be?
collection talks about all solid waste. So it'll be trash. The organized system is trash, recycling, curbside organics, and it includes other services as well that aren't mandatory or that aren't, you know, that not every household has, like yard waste, things like
Okay.
that. So it's all included in these negotiations with haulers. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have every service. Like yard waste
Right.
is an optional thing now. It would continue to be an optional service, but it is looking at trash, recycling, and curbside organics. So
Okay. Awesome.
Awesome. Well, in the interest of time, I think we should move on to our last couple of things that we have here. We don't have any action items other than just kind of a reminder to send ideas about that tree protection policy to Rachel, so that she can send that to me and Carolyn to kind of draft a letter before our next meeting. And Heather, do you have an update from the Community Services Commission for us?
Sure. Yeah, we met just a couple nights ago. So I've got some updates here. They've been working on some park upgrades, so those are being finished up for Taft and Madison soon. Augsburg's all-inclusive, Augsburg's inclusive park has been delayed until 2021. So there's just some red tape that they're trying to get some approval for the tribal council, and they have not been meeting right now. So that has not happened yet. Other than just kind of going on in you know, our new COVID world with trying to get some programs going. The dog park will be opening. There's a ribbon cutting on November 5th. Going, and I believe there are baggies for like the first 25 or some number of dogs. So treat bags. I don't think humans get any, sorry. But it sounds really awesome. So if you guys do have dogs, you should go check it out. There's like a photo booth. There's all kinds of cool stuff. So
I'm sorry, you
let's
mean
see
when was
here.
that?
November 5th, 4:30.
Okay. Oh, 4:30. Okay.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And if anyone does go, I would love to hear on the next call what you think. So we will not go because he's antisocial. So yeah, other than that, I don't know, you know, the ice arena is basically done. They've almost finished the roof, so that's HVAC system is next. And this commission will like this. Once that's finished, it's going to do a lot for, you know, saving a lot of energy, especially in the summers. So that upgrade will be really nice. Their presentation to council is also on the 10th. I'm trying to see what else there was. I don't see a whole lot else. There was discussion about some budget changes due to COVID and the pool maintenance that needs to be taken care of. But since Wood Lake and Community Center buildings weren't really open much this year, we did save on maintenance with them. So some of that will help. Otherwise, resurfacing at Veterans Park was a discussion item, and we're hoping to have that taken care of next summer. That's all I've got. Any questions? All right, awesome.
Thank you, Heather. All right, so we just have a couple minutes left here. Remember that our normal meeting time would fall on Thanksgiving next month, so we're going to be meeting a week early on Thursday, November 19th. Yeah, and I think that's all we got. Are there any other final comments from commissioners for the good of the order? All right. Does anybody have any great, like, socially distant ideas for Halloween? You're gonna throw candy at kids from your porch?
Oh,
My friend's having an outdoor movie showing.
That's awesome. We've
So-
tried that here. Yeah.
You bring your own candy, bring your own chairs and drinks and that sort of stuff, and hopefully some of the snow will melt by then, and so it'll be otherwise quite chilly. But that's the big event.
Yeah. We're gonna dress Leo up as a lion because it's his first Halloween. So even if we don't have anywhere to go, there's pictures in the internet. Well, I'll be sure to have pictures of that at the next meeting. All right. Well, just in case you guys want to go watch the debate, proceed with caution. Take care of yourselves.
We have to officially adjourn the meeting, Amanda.
Okay. Yes. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Second?
I think that was Cameron.
Cameron motioned and Carolyn seconded.
Awesome. Meeting adjourned. We'll see you next month.